They said he'd never amount to anything. The words, once a careless verdict, still hum beneath the applause tonight. The school auditorium smells of varnished wood and chalk dust, exactly as it did 20 years ago. He stands behind the podium, holding his own textbook, the one their children now study. Faces blur in the dim light, familiar eyes staring back with pride, disguised as surprise. The silence before his speech is thick, almost holy. Somewhere in that quiet, he hears the ghost of laughter that used to follow him down the hall. What secret could break a family twice? Failure or forgiveness? His mother's eyes glisten from the front row. The teachers sit behind her, stiff, waiting for the moment to clap. He breathes in, steady, remembering every night he stayed awake, proving them wrong. And for a second, before words find him, he wonders if victory always feels this lonely. The first words leave his mouth like old dust shaken from memory. He doesn't read the script. He speaks from the ache that built it. He talks about failure, how it used to sleep beside him, how it taught him more than success ever could. The audience listens, half admiration, half discomfort. Every teacher's gaze feels like a test he's taking again. Only this time, he's grading them. His voice trembles when he mentions the boy who was told to stop dreaming. The line lands heavy in the air, hovering between confession and accusation. He sees his mother bow her head, shoulders tightening with emotion. Somewhere in the back, a child, one of the teacher's kids, whispers, "That's my dad's old student." Ethan pauses, almost smiles, then continues. The past isn't gone. It's sitting right here, wearing older faces. After the ceremony, the noise fades into quiet fragments. Footsteps, scattered laughter. The rustle of old programs. Ethan steps into the hallway, drawn by the faint smell of chalk and paint thinner. His mother follows, her silence heavier than any praise. They pass the classroom door, still labeled Room 104. It's been years since he stood there trembling with a failed test in his hands. He stops, staring at the peeling paint, at the ghosts of all the versions of himself that never left this building. Clara breaks the silence. "You proved them wrong." He turns to her, voice low. "Did I? Or did I just become what they wanted me to be?" Her eyes soften. In the distance, faint laughter of students echoes like a reminder that the world moves on, even when your heart stays behind. The old classroom smells of chalk, nostalgia, and something unspoken. Desks are smaller than he remembers, walls filled with new posters preaching, "Every child can learn." He lets out a breath that sounds like disbelief. "Mrs. Miss Rivera enters quietly behind him. She was the only one who ever defended him. Softly, carefully, like a secret. "You changed, Ethan," she says, eyes scanning the floor. "No," he replies. "I remembered." They stand in silence for a while, the hum of ceiling lights filling the distance. She tells him her daughter studies his curriculum now and that she's proud. For a moment, he almost forgives the years that hurt him. Almost. Then he looks at the desk where he once carved his initials and whispers, "This room taught me how to fight quietly." As dusk settles, the auditorium empties. Ethan sits alone on the stage steps, microphone off, speech papers scattered beside him. The applause is gone, leaving only the echo of what it meant. He looks at his phone. Unread messages from publishers, universities, success stories waiting for his attention. But his eyes drift instead toward the door where his teachers left, still avoiding his gaze. His mother appears once more, hand on his shoulder, quiet and steady. "You don't have to win anymore," she says. He nods, not in agreement but in understanding. Outside, the sky turns violet, the parking lot nearly empty. He walks toward the exit, every step slower than the last, carrying triumph in one hand, loneliness in the other. The morning after the ceremony, rain clings to the windows of the small motel where Ethan stays. He sits on the edge of the bed, the applause still echoing somewhere behind his thoughts. His phone vibrates with messages he doesn't open. Outside, the town stirs. The same streets, the same whispers. Only now he's the story they tell. He scrolls through photos of the event online. His old teachers are tagged, smiling beside him as if history never bruised. He wonders how they sleep after rewriting memory. The rain deepens. He types a message to Miss Rivera, deletes it, then calls his mother instead. "You okay?" she asks. "I don't know," he says. "I thought it would feel like peace." Silence stretches, honest and raw. Some victories echo louder than pain. In the teacher's lounge, coffee brews with the smell of burned nerves. Mr. Jensen sits in silence, the morning newspaper folded in his lap. His name appears under a photo caption. Former teacher attends ex-student's speech. The irony bites. Mrs. Clark and Ms. Rivera share the table. Avoiding each other's eyes has come far. Ms. Rivera says quietly. Jensen smirks. Some kids just need motivation. The line falls flat. Clark looks up, voice trembling. We weren't motivators. We were judges. For a long second, no one speaks. Rivera looks out the window, her daughter's textbook visible in her bag, the one with Ethan's name on it. She presses her hand over it, as if holding a confession too late to speak. That afternoon, Ethan visits his old classroom again, this time alone. He brings a folder of lesson plans, hoping to donate them to the school. A gesture, half humble, half healing. The principal greets him politely, all corporate warmth, no memory. We're honored by your success, she says, leading him past photos of alumni. He nods, smiling, but his eyes stop at one. A younger version of himself, slouched, labeled, most likely to quit. He laughs softly. You're welcome to rewrite it, he tells her. But she doesn't understand. When she leaves, he stands before the wall of frames, touching the glass gently. His reflection overlaps the boy he was. Still here, he whispers, and for the first time it sounds less like bitterness, more like peace. That night, Clara Vale sits alone in her small kitchen, the radio humming faintly. She holds Ethan's childhood. Report cards spread across the table, each stamped with red comments. Needs focus. Disruptive. Hopeless. She traces the words, her lips pressing into a thin smile that's part sorrow, part pride. When the phone rings, it's Mrs. Clark on the other end. I wanted to apologize, she says, voice trembling. Clara listens quiet. You told him he could do it. Clark continues. We told him he couldn't. There's a pause. You were wrong, Clara answers softly. He just needed time. When she hangs up, she looks at the report cards again and whispers, so did I. The next morning, Ms. Rivera parks outside Ethan's motel. She hesitates before knocking, holding an envelope in her hand, an old recommendation letter she never sent for him. When he opens the door, he looks surprised but not angry. She steps in, eyes darting everywhere but his face. You deserved this, she says, handing him the letter. He unfolds it. Her handwriting shakes across the page. Why now? He asks. Because my daughter asked me why your name's on her textbook, she says. And I realized I still hadn't answered her. He reads the letter silently. Outside, morning light spills across the rain-soaked lot. She leaves before he can respond. When he looks up, she's gone. But the letter feels heavier than any award. The classroom feels smaller than memory promised. Ethan stands before 30 faces, none older than 13. And all of them carry the same restless energy he once did. Among them sits Owen Clark, his former teacher's son. Chin resting on his hand, eyes distant. The irony stings, but Ethan hides it behind his calm. He starts the lesson with a question, not a rule. Why do we fail? He asks. Silence stretches. Then Owen shrugs. Because teachers stop believing. The answer lands like a quiet truth. The other students glance at Ethan, unsure if it's allowed to be that honest. He smiles faintly, remembering his own defiance. Maybe, he says, or maybe because we stopped believing in ourselves first. For the first time, the room listens. After class, Owen lingers, tracing circles on his desk with a pencil. "Did my dad really say you'd never make it?" he blurts. Ethan hesitates. "He's learned that truth can wound if spoken too soon," he said. "I needed to find a different path." Ethan answers softly. "And he was right. I just built my own." Owen nods slowly. "He doesn't talk about you much." Ethan forces a smile. "That's all right. Some stories take years to tell." The boy studies him for a long moment, as if deciding whether to trust this quiet man everyone now calls a genius. Ethan packs his bag, the weight of both forgiveness and memory pressing down evenly. Outside, the bell rings, ending one lesson, beginning another. At home, Mr. Jensen watches the televised interview of Ethan discussing his new curriculum. The reporter praises its empathy-first method, its focus on understanding over memorization. Jensen mutes the TV. His wife calls from the kitchen, asking if he's proud. He can't answer. His eyes drift toward an old grade book on the shelf, still marked with Ethan's failing scores. He opens it slowly, running his fingers over the red ink. Every incomplete, now a monument to his blindness. He takes a pen and crosses one word out. Hopeless. "Too late for grades," he mutters. But not for grace. For the first time, he feels lighter. He writes one new word beneath Ethan's name: learned. Meanwhile, Ms. Rivera watches her daughter study in their small apartment. The girl flips through Ethan's workbook, tracing exercises about self-worth and curiosity. Rivera sits quietly, a half-smile playing at her lips. The same woman who once graded Ethan's grammar now reads his words on educational psychology. "He taught you this?" her daughter asks. Rivera nods. "He taught me too. I just didn't know it then." The girl looks puzzled but keeps reading. Outside, the city glows under the fading sun. Rivera whispers to herself, maybe forgiveness isn't spoken, maybe it's learned. Friday evening, the final bell rings. Ethan walks through the empty hallway, hearing echoes of laughter that aren't there anymore. At the end of the corridor, Owen waits, holding a paper. "I finished your assignment," he says. Ethan takes it, reading the title, "Why We Fail." Beneath it, in shaky handwriting, "To learn how to start again." He looks up, swallowing emotion. I've ever read," he says. Owen smiles, quick and shy. As the boy leaves, Ethan stares at the page. A simple sentence that feels like his whole life written back to him. The hall falls silent, and he finally allows himself to breathe. The letter arrives on a gray morning, tucked beneath his motel door. Handwriting slanted and uncertain. "Saw you on the news. Thought maybe it's time." No return address. But he knows that voice written in ink. His father. The man who left when Ethan was 15. The man whose silence built the echo chamber Ethan called ambition. He holds the paper for a long time before folding it carefully, as if it might crumble under touch. Later, he drives out to the old farmhouse at the edge of town. The road feels shorter now, though it's been 20 years. Each mile tastes like unfinished conversation. When he stops at the gate, the air is thick with the smell of wet earth and apology. The first words between them are not words at all, just the scrape of a chair and the clink of 2 coffee cups. They sit at a chipped kitchen table, both pretending time hasn't thickened the air. Daniel starts with small talk. Weather, news, a joke about seeing your face on TV. Ethan nods, eyes steady, saying little. Then Daniel exhales, heavy. "I wasn't good at staying," Ethan replies. "I noticed. It's not anger, just fact." Daniel looks down. "I thought if I left, you'd stop trying to be me." The silence that follows feels like a confession neither asked for. Ethan studies his father's shaking hands and realizes for the first time maybe they were both running from the same fear of failure. After hours of silence, Daniel leads Ethan to the barn. Once a workshop, now half collapsed under its own weight. "You used to sit here and draw things," he says. Ethan runs a hand along the wooden beam, his initials still carved there. "I used to wait for you," he answers. Daniel stops mid-step. "I know." Wind slips through the cracks, carrying dust and regret. "You made something real, son," Daniel says. "You turned it all into something that matters." Ethan stares at the initials again. "Yeah," he says quietly, "but it never stopped hurting." The moment hovers, unfinished, like every conversation they didn't have. That evening, Clara arrives at the farmhouse uninvited. She walks in without knocking, old habits, old pain. Daniel looks startled but says nothing. The three of them share a silence too complicated for greetings. "You could have told me," she says to Ethan. "I didn't know how," he replies. Daniel looks at her, eyes wet. "He got the best of both of us. Your strength, my mistakes." She nods slowly. "Then maybe it's time we both let him keep only one." The room grows still, the kind of still that comes before forgiveness. Ethan glances between them, the parents who broke him, standing quietly in the same room for the first time in decades. Later that night, Ethan drives back to town, headlights carving through the mist. He doesn't feel lighter, not yet. Just clearer. The past didn't disappear. It settled, finally, in the right place. He stops at the empty school parking lot, the building dark and still. Walking up the steps, he sees his reflection in the glass doors. Not the hopeless boy, not the man who conquered him, but something quieter in between. He whispers, "Thank you," though it's unclear to whom. The wind answers softly, carrying the smell of chalk and rain. For the first time in years, Ethan doesn't feel like proving anything. The following week, Ethan returns to the school with a new calm in his stride. The principal greets him with news. His curriculum will expand statewide. Applause fills the staff room, polite but genuine. Even Mr. Jensen claps this time. Yet Ethan's eyes find Owen at the back of the room, grinning like someone who knows what real victory looks like. Later, Ethan tells his students the news. "It's not just my work," he says. "It's ours." The class cheers, notebooks thudding closed. For a moment, the room hums with something purer than pride, understanding. Ethan looks out the window where rain softens the world and thinks, sometimes growth sounds like laughter in a place that once hurt you. That evening, Ethan hosts a small community event in the gym. Part reunion, part gratitude circle. Parents and teachers gather, folding chairs forming loose rows. He begins by thanking them, not for belief, but for disbelief. "Because without it, I might never have learned how to." The crowd quiets. Ms. Rivera watches him with tears she doesn't hide. Mr. Jensen clears his throat before standing. "I was wrong," he says simply. The room holds its breath. "And I'm proud that my failure became your success." Ethan nods, words failing him for once. Applause swells, not thunderous but warm, like rain on old wood. Like rain on old wood. After the crowd leaves, Ethan finds Mrs. Clark by the exit, clutching her son's backpack. "He talks about you nonstop," she says with a nervous smile. "I used to worry he'd turn out like you." Ethan laughs softly. "Now I hope he does." Her face trembles between guilt and gratitude. "You turned pain into something good," she says. "Not everyone can." He shakes his head. "It wasn't me. It was time." She nods, understanding. They stand for a moment in that quiet between old shame and new respect. Two people realizing that redemption doesn't erase the past. It rewrites how it ends. At home, Clara and Daniel sit together on the porch for the first time in years. The evening is still, the sky folding into indigo. Ethan arrives unannounced, carrying a box of new textbooks, his first printed run. He hands them each a copy. Clara opens hers, eyes glistening. "You wrote this?" she asks. "We all did," he replies softly. Daniel nods, fingers tracing his son's name on the cover. The silence that follows is gentle, not heavy. The kind that holds, rather than hurts. For the first time, Ethan doesn't feel like a child in front of them, but something steadier. A bridge between what was broken and what's whole again. A month later, Ethan watches from the back of a classroom as a new teacher leads students through his lesson plan. The kids laugh, scribble, argue, alive in ways he once only dreamed of being. He feels no need to intervene. As he turns to leave, Owen spots him through the window and waves, grinning. Ethan waves back, his reflection overlapping the children in the glass. Outside, the sun rises, painting the school in gold. "Hopeless," he whispers with a faint smile. "Not anymore." He walks away, his footsteps fading into the hum of a world, finally moving forward with him, not against him. A month later, Ethan stands backstage at a national education summit. The crowd outside buzzes with anticipation. Teachers, reporters, scholars, all waiting to hear from the man whose name became a movement. His palms are dry this time. The nerves are gone. What's left is wonder. A young organizer rushes over, saying his session will be streamed to thousands of classrooms. He smiles faintly. Thousands. He remembers when one teacher's approval meant the world. Now the world listens. He steps toward the light, thinking not of success, but of every child still being told they can't. The curtain rises, and for once, he feels no need to prove anything, only to give it away. Midway through the talk, Ethan notices a girl in the front row filming on her tablet. Later, she approaches him, shy smile breaking through nerves. "My mom said you were her teacher once," she says. "You made her believe she wasn't dumb." Ethan laughs softly. "Then she taught you well." The girl grins. "She's Miss Rivera." The moment steals his breath. He asks her name. "Elena," she replies, holding up his book for him to sign. As he writes, he realizes legacy isn't built through systems or speeches. It's built one name at a time, passed from voice to voice like a quiet inheritance. Weeks later, Ethan visits a pilot school adopting his curriculum in another state. The principal introduces him to young teachers excited to adapt his lessons. He watches them debate, rewrite, challenge ideas, and at first, it stings. Then he realizes this is what growth sounds like. They aren't protecting his vision. They're expanding. He steps outside for air, phone buzzing with new invitations, but he doesn't answer. In the courtyard, children play under banners quoting his words. Mistakes are beginnings. He closes his eyes, letting the sound of laughter carry the truth. Legacy isn't control, it's surrender. Back home, Ethan helps Clara hang photos for a small exhibition the town arranged, from hopeless to hope. Each frame shows moments from his journey. The classroom, the barn, the summit. Daniel joins them, hammer in hand, pretending not to cry when he sees a picture of Ethan's first failed report card displayed beside the new textbook. "Guess that grade aged well," he jokes. They all laugh. The kind that comes only when old pain finally turns into story. Clara touches Ethan's shoulder. "It's strange," she says. "I used to pray you'd prove them wrong. Now I just hope you rest." Later that night, Ethan walks alone through the empty school grounds. Moonlight spills across the playground where laughter used to echo. He sits on a bench, opening his notebook, the same one from his student days, pages yellowed and worn. In the corner, the word hopeless still faintly visible. He writes beneath it, "Changed." Closing the notebook, he looks toward the classrooms glowing softly in the dark. Somewhere inside, a janitor hums a tune, the same rhythm as the life he finally accepts. For the first time, silence feels kind. 5 years later, the town looks almost the same. The same red brick school, the same playground swing creaking in the wind. Yet, everything feels lighter. Ethan's curriculum has become a national program now, but his name appears smaller on the covers, as it should. In the teacher's lounge, a new group of educators share lesson plans printed from his model. Among them is Owen Clark, taller now, voice steadier, preparing for his first year as a teacher. He opens the textbook. Tracing the words, learning begins where judgment ends. He smiles quietly. The man they once called hopeless had built something that outlived him. Not fame, but foundation. Across town, Clara Vale and Daniel Vale sit together in the garden, letters from Ethan scattered between them. He's abroad now, consulting quietly, traveling from school to school, sending photos instead of visits. Clara reads his words aloud. Short, steady notes about classroom students. Life lived softly. Daniel smiles between sips of tea. He finally stopped running, he says. Maybe, Clara answers. Or maybe he just started walking the right way. The garden hums with crickets and late summer breeze. The ache that once filled their house has become something gentler, a pulse of memory that no longer hurts to hold. At a conference in another country, Ethan listens rather than speaks. A young educator presents new research based on his curriculum. Improved literacy, better emotional awareness. She calls it the Vale Method. Reimagine. The audience applauds. Ethan claps too, unnoticed in the crowd, proud and invisible all at once. Later, she finds him in the hallway and thanks him. You made this possible, she says. He shakes his head. You made it new. It's the first time the word hopeless feels completely foreign to him, like a language he no longer remembers. Back in his motel one evening, Ethan opens his old notebook again. The ink has faded, but the lessons remain etched in every crease. He writes a final entry. Success is not the opposite of failure. It's the patience between the two. He closes it, leaving it on the nightstand before stepping outside. The street hums with the noise of young people heading somewhere. Hopeful, hurried, alive. He watches them pass, realizing that what he built was never meant to be kept. It was meant to be continued. Morning sunlight floods the same classroom where it all began. Owen stands at the board, facing a group of wide-eyed students. Why do we fail? He asks. A small hand rises. So, we can learn how to start again, the child says. He smiles, hearing the echo of words pass through generations. Outside, birdsong cuts through the open window. Somewhere far away, Ethan walks along a quiet seaside road, unaware that his voice now lives in others. The story comes full circle. Not of revenge, not even redemption, but renewal. The world, at last, learns gently.